Ke nna Motshabi Moloi, moradi wa Albertina, Mama Chona le Joseph Mbutana Moloi. Ke le lekgolokwe le hlaba Botswana, le hlaba kgoho ka lemao ka sebonong, le hlaba le isa kgorong ha mafafane. Mafafane a eja a e halala, a re kgutla hape o e eketsa, motho wa wetse.
Welcome to The Journey with Mpo podcast, a sacred space for healing, love, and rediscovering your life purpose. Introducing your host, Mpo.
Okay, you ready?
No.
Me neither. Never have.
Maybe we should do a grounding with them.
Yeah.
You need
Let me drink some water.
water? Yeah.
Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Hello, Journey with Mpo friends and family. In today's episode, I am excited for you to meet my mentor and Reiki teacher, Dr. Chris Lipat. Dr. Lipat is a holistic doctor of chiropractic, cellular regeneration technique practitioner, functional medicine practitioner, and white light and karuna Reiki practitioner. Now, I know I may have lost a few of you there, and it's okay. Stick around, and I promise we are going to simplify things. Diving deeper into her biography provided on drchrislipat.com, Dr. Lipat discovered the value of chiropractic combined with nutrition and energy work during her own healing journey. After 12 years as a dedicated, full-time staff and volunteer board member for various social justice organizations in New York City, she experienced burnout and its consequences. Activist mentors introduced her to the restorative effects of Reiki, yoga, and acupuncture, and she was quickly hooked on the philosophies of nurturing the inner healer. Hello, Dr. Lipat. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, I'm happy to spend some time with you.
Yeah, this will be fun.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump into my first question. So, shortly before attending to the process of nurturing your inner healer, you experienced corporate burnout. How easy or tumultuous was the transition from corporate world to energy work?
You know, working for an organization in a place where, you know, New York City, gosh, it's such a wonderful, crazy, awesome place where so many different peoples live. And it's a great cross section of the universe, really. And at that time, you know, I was in my 20s, right? So I'm still young and just idealistic. And at that time, you know, when I grew up I was, my parents are Filipino.
Okay.
They met in New Jersey. Their first date was on the Staten Island ferry, right? But this was in the 70s.
Okay.
So, I was born and raised in New Jersey, as a Filipina, and it was rough. It was rough to grow up in a predominantly white area.
Yeah.
From there, I learned about racism because I experienced it.
Yeah.
I learned about being an outsider.
Yeah.
I learned about how it is to live kind of outside the matrix, so to speak.
Yeah.
I was reading fantasy books as a way to escape, and more, starting to lean more outside that kind of matrix. So later on, it helped me to, learn how to question things. I went to a college, Oberlin College. It was a very progressive institution, right? A lot of activists actually come out of it, and it really opened my eyes and helped shape my values around, what's fair, what's just in the world. And so when I saw, when I compared my experiences and could relate to others' experiences around, not belonging, around, social and economic injustice, I was like, I got so passionate about it. So, even though I was pre-med in undergrad, my parents my dad's a doctor, my mom's a nurse. And so I always thought I would be a doctor, a medical doctor, right?
Okay.
So, but when I went to school, and I was a biology major, right? So we would do experiments and we would question them. And I realized a lot of these experiments were failed experiments. We would make an hypothesis about, hormones, and then we would try to influence those, in mice experiments, and then we would totally fail. And then I was like, oh my gosh, wow, this is so eye-opening. That science is not infallible. That, science is just, people testing their ideas and seeing what works and what doesn't, and realizing that, what's important about you being in the medical field is that you want to convey that, because people are depending on you to save them, right?
Yeah.
And so you need to give that confidence, but at the same time, it's hard because we actually really don't know.
No.
There's so many things we don't know. And science is only just catching up, right? So so when it came time to really move forward, I was like, gosh, I don't know if I want to be a doctor, because I'd want to change the whole medical field, and that's a lot of energy, and I don't know if I want to do that.
So much changing to do.
Yeah, So I pursued my passion at that time, which was I was getting active in the Asian American community, and so that's when I got into wanting to do more community work. So when I graduated, I moved to New York City and got involved and got into social justice. So it was great. I was doing really meaningful work, but it also came from a place of like trauma, right? For me, I was wanting to help change the world. I was wanting to save everything and everybody, and I was putting myself out there a lot. I was working 16-hour days. I was so dedicated to the missions of the organizations I was in, and I also had a hard time saying no. I felt so overly responsible for everyone and everything, and so working those hours, putting myself out there for so long, it was gratifying at first, and then at some point I burned out, right? So as I was burning out, though, that's when I learned about Reiki, and Reiki came into my life. I didn't seek it out. A friend of mine was like, oh, you should learn Reiki, right? And it happened to be, there's a Reiki master who's a Filipina activist who moved to New Jersey from the Philippines, and she was like, oh, everyone should learn this. And so me and all my other Filipina activist friends, we all learned it, and it was awesome, because to me it was like magic. You're right. All of us, we're trained to learn how to sense and feel energy, and with every Reiki attunement, your intuition increases and increases. Now when I was little, right, and I was all up in fantasy books, because I liked it because of the idea of this idea of magic, that people had abilities beyond what we could normally just see, right, or experience or feel at that time. So I think at some point I was so into it that I actually went down into our backyard and I cut down a small tree because I wanted to make a staff. Right? I was that like geeked out on it. And so, but my dad, I didn't ask permission, right? I didn't ask permission of my dad. I didn't ask permission of the tree. I didn't know anything. I didn't know about that back then. I just knew wizards have staffs and I want to be a wizard and, and I'm going to make a staff for myself. So, but my dad found out and he was so upset. You cut down a tree, and I was like, oh, I got so shame. And so it just ended up staying in the garage for so long, right? Because I didn't, I had the inclinations, but I didn't have the real understanding of what that was, what magic is, right? So Reiki was my first introduction.
Yes.
And gosh, I loved it so much. I was like, okay, when's the next class? And so in 2 years, I got to master level. Wow. But in that meantime, it was changing my life, right? It was helping me, even though there were nights when I wasn't sleeping right or I kept waking up anxious. I would Reiki myself, and then I could get through the day as though I had a good night's sleep, a full night's sleep. But I knew that wasn't sustainable, right? I knew that, I just wasn't feeling well, and that if I kept going like this, I would get seriously ill. And so that's when I said, okay, gosh, I need to leave. I need to leave New York because I don't know how to say no. If I stay, I'll have to say no, and I still need to learn that. I need to learn what my boundaries are, because in New York, I just, I'm so connected now. I want to help everyone and everything. So I need to rest. I needed to leave. And so that's when I said, okay, I'm going to give you a year's notice, because that's how dedicated I was. And I'm going to leave. I'm going to move to California and just rest. And do a Reiki practice, right? So so now I'm leaving this. Getting back to your question, I'm leaving this kind of corporate world, salaried world, to move into this now choice of choosing to be a Reiki practitioner, which in a sense is then starting my own business. So I was pretty naive. I was like, okay, I'm gonna. Even though I thought, oh yeah, I've worked in small nonprofits, so I know how a nonprofit works. I know how business kind of works. But I didn't realize, oh my gosh, I have to, I don't know people in the place I'm moving to. I hardly know the field itself. I'm moving from one profession to another profession. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have to start my own business.
Very bold.
Yeah. It was, in a place that I don't know anybody, right? So then I was like, okay, well, I worked with a friend who's a coach, and we traded. I was like, okay, Reiki for, some coaching. So she's like, okay, imagine your ideal day. I'm already in California now. Imagine your ideal day. And I said, okay, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to have breakfast, take a walk, and then I'm going to have a Reiki client, maybe 2 Reiki clients in the morning. And then have lunch, maybe have a Reiki client in the afternoon, and then have, dinner with my partner and, with friends. And then that's it, right? So she said, okay, so how do you feel at the end of the day? And I was like, bored. Bored because, yes, maybe once in a while I'll have, friends at the end of the day, have dinner, but for the most part, I'm at home, seeing 1 or 2 people a day. Whereas, before I was living in New York City, just seeing lots of people all the time. So I was like, oh gosh, wait, is this what I really want? I just had this kind of vague idea, Then I decided, oh, maybe I need a part-time job. And that's when I ended up working for a chiropractor. I found the next day, I look on Craigslist, oh, there's a part-time job opening working with a chiropractor. Oh my gosh, perfect. I could learn about the holistic healing field, work part-time, also do really easy work because I was so burnt out. I was so happy to just file for someone and answer their phones. I was that tired, from being like a, funding executive to like a secretary, and I was so good with that. I was so fine with that. That's how burnt out I was, right? So yeah, it was not easy, but because I was naive. I didn't know like really what a big decision I was making, but I just knew that a change needed to happen, and I just somehow trusted that things were gonna fall into place. Yeah. And actually, eventually, I knew I was gonna go back to school in some way, because if I did want to go more into the healing field, I would probably need to do something. So I was looking into acupuncture, and then I actually looked into chiropractic, and I ended up in chiropractic school.
Oh, okay. So Reiki came first.
Yeah, Reiki is like the gateway. Reiki is a wonderful gateway into learning about energy.
Yes.
And then it opens you up to just a whole nother dimension and world of how humans exist in this world, right?
I guess my question is, for your transition moving to Reikiing people who knew what Reiki was, and then Reikiing people who didn't know what Reiki was, what was your discussion like when someone went, okay, what is Reiki?
What is Reiki?
What are you trying to do to me?
Yeah, right?
Do I need to keep my clothes on?
Yes, clothes on, because the human being is not just we're now I have words, even back in the early 2000s. I don't know that there are necessarily words out there, like quantum science was still kind of early on, right? But nowadays I could say ultimately we're all just vibrating strings. We're all just sound and frequency, but we're dense enough that we can see each other with our naked eye.
Yes.
Right? So, or we could feel each other, right? Yes. Because we're a little bit more dense.
Yeah.
So Reiki, and then we have energy fields around us, right? That extend, which is the auric field, which can extend out, many feet, depending on how awesome you're feeling. I remember I went to acupuncture school because there was this practitioner, Qigong practitioner from the Wudang mountain who practiced laughing Qigong.
Okay.
His qi was so big. I was at the back of the room and I can feel his qi. It was so powerful. Just the way I felt it was just this energy, this kind of pulsing energy.
Okay.
So if you're sensitive, and that's how I am, I feel things more than I see and hear, right? So I felt his energy. So in any case, so we're that possibility. As humans, we are that possibility of not just our bodies, but how we extend out. So Reiki is a Japanese form of energy healing that allows us to, as a practitioner, access this universal life force energy to become a channel for a person who is, or even for ourselves. And the Reiki energy knows how to bring other energies into balance, right? So let's say ki is another word for energy, right? So, in Chinese medicine and in Japanese medicine, and of course in the Hindu chakra system, there are all different ways of naming how energy gets organized in the body, right? So there's ki of air, ki of water, ki of the blood, ki of salt and minerals. And so Reiki is kind of like this overarching ki that knows how all of these other keys need to be balanced. Acupuncture, is a very sophisticated understanding of how to balance energy in the body, in meridians. And so Reiki is also kind of like, a spiritual kind of acupuncture, so to speak. But you don't have to have as much training, right? Because with, miraculously enough with Reiki, anyone can do it. Anyone can do it as long as you're open, and as long as you're not attached to the outcome, and that you're just allow the person who's receiving to bring the energy through so that they can help to balance, they can balance themselves. And again, we don't even need their understanding as well, right? It's so interesting in that way.
I guess my next question was going to be about how much I love your usage of the term practitioner in comparison to the term Reiki healer. Because I think that there's sometimes a misconception that if you do come to a Reiki session, some sort of healing, miraculous thing will take place. Now, that's not always the case, and we're not saying we're not healers, but we're also not saying we're healers. There's a middle line there. How do you navigate those expectations in the people who come with that magical thought, like, okay, I'm going to get healed here,
fix everything, right? Can you please fix me, right? And and that's how we're raised in this culture. It's like we're so disempowered around our health that we seek people out to help fix us, right? That if we give them some money, they will give us the cure, right? And it's actually unfortunately it doesn't really work that way. Right? What actually is going on is that we make choices, and also we do inherit, ancestral tendencies. We do, if some people believe or have experienced kind of past life traumas, in conjunction with our present life, all of those expressions come together and we make choices, right? And those choices either are healthful for us or not. They put us out of balance, or they keep us in balance, or they're healing, or they're, they cause deficiency or toxicity, right? And so we make those choices. And then we also have conscious and subconscious experiences of emotions, right, which are based on, again, our past experience or ancestral and past life trauma, right? But so we have these experiences, and so when you're coming to the table to work with any kind of alternative healing practitioner, right, what they're actually providing for you, they're a facilitator, right? They're helping to rebalance your energy, so that hopefully you can continue to remember how it feels like to be balanced and begin to make better choices for yourself, right? So a Reiki practitioner will clear what's called blocks. Energetic blocks are basically patterns of incoherence in our body, right? Or stress patterns in our body that we've created, over time, whether it's learned patterns that have helped us to survive, learned stress patterns, or whether it's just strong experiences that we couldn't process at the time, and so we've kind of stored it until we are ready. Traumas, until we are ready to process it, right? And so that's why usually we go back a lot to childhood, because that's where a lot of strong experiences happen that we're not able to understand at the time, but we know that if we respond in a certain way, it's going to help us survive, right, at that moment, because that's all we're wired to do until our brain becomes more developed, and we can begin to look back and change those stories, right? So in any case, an energetic block is like that. It's like an incoherent, trauma, and so the Reiki,
like a short circuit.
Yeah, exactly, like a short circuit too. And so we store that until we're ready to look at it and transform it, or bring it to a place of ease, or more integration, or kind of a neutrality. I use all these words to basically say an area of the body that's kind of frenetic and in this survival mode, and we now look at it again, and there's a lot of energy there, right? So then as we're older, we could look at it, and then the Reiki energy can kind of bring more coherence to the area, help it calm down. That kind of localized stress can help it calm down, bring ease. And so then when there's more ease, you can look at that area or that memory or that trauma from the past and say, oh, I see you now. Now I can better understand how it impacted me. Now I can realize, I'm not that little kid anymore. I'm an adult now, and I'm safe, right? Someone yelling at me, or even my mom yelling at me, maybe it was a huge impact when I was young, because I didn't know whether or not my mom would keep me or whether my mom would kick me out if I did something wrong, right? But now I know, I have my own home. If mom got mad at me, I'm still okay. The world is not going to end, right? And so, Reiki can help on that emotional level or mental level, or even that physical response, right? So like, again, you might have stored that trauma, that then if you experience something that reminds you of that trauma or that's similar, you may go into a stress response, a physical stress response, right? So so energy blocks, so Reiki can help to, bring more ease, so that then you can help to look at it safely and transform it on a conscious level, right? So sometimes people will come to a Reiki session, and I mean, if you clear people's blocks, people can feel like a Superman afterwards, or Superwoman, or super person afterwards, right? Because unstoppable, right? Or you could also feel like, gosh, you've been run over by a bus, right? Because now, now that you gave yourself some ease, your body can now go and do some healing and repair work. It can do some detoxifying work. It can, begin to rebuild, right? And so that can be painful, right? Because now all these things are up in the surface, things that you had buried because you didn't have time to deal with before. Now are coming up to the surface, so you can look at it and deal with it and release it. So so you can feel all of that after Reiki session. You can feel amazing, or you can feel like, oh gosh, wow, that was a lot. And then the next few days you can have, again, you can feel like it's totally on, and you can be totally in your flow, or you can feel like, oh my gosh, wow, okay, I remember that. Oh wow, now I can cry because I couldn't cry before. So, I'm sure you've experienced those things.
I've experienced them with attunements, which, is kind of similar to a Reiki session, but like times 30 of a Reiki session.
Exactly,
maybe.
yes.
So instead of being hit by a bus, you get hit by a train.
Because a Reiki attunement is really, it's a spiritual attunement that it'll basically your channel. It opens up your system to be able to channel even more purified kind of light, spiritual light than you did before. Because everyone has a connection to the divine. Everyone has a connection to, the universe. Some are more open than others. So the Reiki attunement really opens it up more, right? So it's a very purifying experience. So anything, again, that's kind of lower vibration or doesn't serve you as much, will come to the surface.
Has to work itself out.
So that you can begin to hold more and more light.
Yes, I definitely feel that. I feel much better than I did when I first started Reiki, and so I do see that gradual improvement. What I do like about Reiki is that it seems to be a multi-layered combination, right? You're working on the physical, you're working on the emotional, you're working on the auras, and all of these other elements that encompass all that we are. But I like that you don't just have to do Reiki. Like, you do Reiki and acupuncture. You do Reiki with muscle testing, which is like a component of Reiki. And so you can combine it into all these other things, like your elixirs, for instance. Was that initially where your Reiki mindset was to, you're fine, to branch out into all those other holistic medicines and techniques, or did they just gradually come as you expanded your ki?
Great question. I think to finish the point around being a facilitator, right? So a practitioner is a facilitator, which means actually the healer is the person on the table, right? The recipient is doing all the healing. You're just clearing the blocks, right? And you're facilitating. So that's why, a lot of folks, or a lot of what I teach is to remind people, don't call yourself, as a Reiki practitioner, try not to call yourself a healer, because you're not the healer, you're just the facilitator. The person on the table is the one healing, right? Yeah. So now to get to your question of, all the different modalities that have come into my practice. Let's see, I think, for me, part of doing the Reiki every day since 2002 for myself. Since my very
Almost
first
18 years?
Yeah, is it that long? Yeah. My very first, Reiki class, right? Yeah. After that, I've been Reiking myself every day. It's helped me to decrease that survival, mind, right? Which is so powerful. So, and all the survival kind of thoughts. And as that decreases, I replace them with affirmations, but what increases is your ability to be creative, right? Because hard to be creative when you're just surviving, right?
Yes, it is.
And gosh, and also this world would love for us to, in this capitalist world, they want us to just survive. They want us to just consume, right? And leave the creating to, the rich people.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right?
Reactive.
Yeah. So we're just in this reactive consumer. Save me, like buy a remedy, buy a cure, right? Versus like, okay, taking the power, taking my own power to create my own reality, right? To grow my own food, to sew my own clothes again, to do all those things that remembering that I can create. So it was interesting when I started my business, just even my this after I finished school, right? I was like, okay, I could either work for another chiropractor or I can start my own. And I'm like, because I am such a soft-spoken, kind of rebel, I knew that if I worked for another chiropractor, my voice wouldn't come out, and I knew I needed to really protect myself and my voice. And so that's why I was able to create a situation where I can start my own practice and build it. Once I figured it out and I started building it, it was the hardest thing I've ever done, because who learns how to create? Who learns how to create your own business?
That's what school should be for, by the way.
Right. We're just in school. We just learn to memorize and follow the rules, right? And then you'll be a upstanding citizen.
Yes.
Right, and buy things,
Yes.
and work for the man.
Yes.
Right.
It's 8 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't learn about how our body works, like truly how our body works. We don't learn about how to grow things. Those things are changing now, right?
Yes.
So rapidly. But in any case, back then. So the Reiki, and then just continuing to have faith, grew my ability to be creative. And also as I changed my question, right? Because when I first started my practice, and this is important, I think, for people who are starting their own practices, what is the question you're trying to answer, in your life, or to help people to answer, right? So when I first started, I was like, okay, the body knows how to heal itself, right? Because, it's so sophisticated. There's so many things going on in the subconscious, innate mind that helps to keep our body running. So the body, you get a cut, the body knows how to heal it. But why isn't it healing the bigger things, right? Why do I have this persistent chronic issues? And so that's when I first started my practice, that's when I started opening up to the complexity of health. So then I was like, okay, well, there's the physical level, there's the emotional level, there's the nutritional level, there's the energetic level, right? Yes. So I was like, okay, I've got the chiropractic, but I realized, chiropractic is really great on the physical level. But gosh, I also have Reiki. Let's bring Reiki back in, because so chiropractic is opening up nerve flow. That's kind of its intention, right? Okay. But Reiki is opening up energetic flow, right? On the physical, but also the emotional, mental, spiritual levels, right? So let's bring those both in. So I was able to combine those. Of course, people are used to going to a chiropractor, like 10 minutes, crack, you're gone, you're done, right? But so my sessions were a little bit longer, right? They were like an hour long, so they're more like a Reiki, with chiropractic kind of session. I just really had the chiropractic and the Reiki, for the most part. But then the next question began to come to me, and I was like, gosh, what do I need to up level? right? What do I need to up level? I mean, yeah, I know how to manage my symptoms, and yeah, sometimes I require a lot of supplements and, to keep me balanced. Gosh, but is there more, right? And so that's when I asked, what do I need to up level? And what do my patients need to up level? And that's when people gifted me things. So someone gifted me sound bowls. Another friend of mine gifted me crystals, right? And so these things were just starting to come into my practice because it was helping me to answer that question. What do I need and what do my patients need to up level, right? So and because I have I incorporate muscle testing into my practice, right? For me, as a kind of kinesthetic person, my intuition comes from feeling, right? So muscle testing, which is a kind of like a stress response test, is a way for me to get in touch with that person's higher self, or that person's their higher self, and I can ask the body questions, yes, no questions, using the muscle testing. So it's great because then I can use the muscle testing to ask the body, how do you want me to approach you? You're having neck pain, okay, and I'm getting sense, I'm ready to look at the neck pain now. Okay, well, I have so many tools. Should we do chiropractic? Should we do Reiki? Do you need a crystal? Do you need sound healing? And so then also I incorporated affirmations as well, right? Because the throat chakra has its own affirmations. I incorporated, and that's also when the concepts of past life trauma and ancestral healing came up more and more to the fore. And again, with the muscle testing, I was able to ask, oh my gosh, there's an ancestral component here. Okay, how much detail do we need to know about that? Is it on your mom's side, your dad's side? How many generations back? What emotions are connected to that? And so, excuse my breakfast. So by opening up that question, all of these things came into my life and into my practice to better serve. At the time, I was using these homeopathic sprays to help with, there's a technique called neuroemotional technique, right? Which basically takes the stress physiology related to particular emotions. So let's say, for instance, anger, right? I could be angry, like, gosh, that really gets to me. Or I could be angry, right? And, have that stress response attached to the anger. And so that approach helps to decrease the stress response related to the anger. So I would use, approaches like tapping or pulse work or breathing, where you get in touch with that emotion, right? And then as you get in touch with it, if you breathe or if you contact some acupuncture points, you can decrease the stress response attached to that emotion. Right, and so that's actually so I had these homeopathic sprays, which were kind of like acupuncture in a bottle, which helped to open up the particular meridians attached to the particular emotion. So for instance, the liver is related to anger, and so that meridian, those homeopathic sprays can work on that meridian to open it up. So at some point, they had a problem with their manufacturer because and the FDA, because the FDA didn't like their non-alcoholic preservative, so they had to switch it. So they stopped manufacturing for a while. So I said, oh my gosh, I really rely on those, to help people with shifting those stress responses to their emotions. So then I was like, okay, well, gosh, there must be something else then that's even better. And so, again, I was visiting my own chiropractor, and he was using flower essences. I was like, what is that? So then I learned more about flower essences, as well as gem elixirs. And flower essences and gem elixirs are kind of like, a flower has to create beauty in the environment, in the harsh environment in which it is existing to survive, right? So in that, and of course it's a little force of nature, right? So in that creation of beauty, it's also, captures a certain energy or sacred geometry within its form. And so Edward Bach was a doctor, and a lot of people understand or have learned about Bach and use Bach flower essences. And he realized that we can transfer the energy of that flower into water, and that it kind of turns that water into, again, a very sacred geometric kind of energy. So it potentizes the water. It makes the water very sacred in a sense.
Yeah, that's why, what is it? Essential oils are so expensive. I've heard about the process of getting, like, how many roses it takes to get rose essential oil.
Yeah. What's nice about this is it's flower essences is a little bit less extractive.
Okay.
Right? Because it's just the energy of the flower and not the actual flower matter itself. Right? So so it's a little bit more eco-friendly, actually.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But in any case, they found that each flower had, as well as, and we also know with crystals, it's the same concept, right? Each crystal has its own vibration and own intentions that helps. So they're wonderful assistants, I found, in helping us to hold more complexity with ease, right? So the idea with helping to calm the stress response around our emotions, right, is that eventually we want to be able to be present to all that is, to the good and the bad, to accept it, to love ourselves unconditionally, and to eventually be with all of this with ease, to be able to integrate all of these hard challenges. And we are all each unique, right, in our own challenges that we've had to overcome. And it's each of our missions to help integrate and come into balance and peace around our own experiences. And that's our own little piece of the world, right? We are each a little piece of the universe. And so as we become more in integration and balance and alignment, the more the whole field of the world increases or vibrates higher, right? So we're actually in this time, a lot of the astrologers are going crazy right now because it's, on December 21st is the equinox, but it's also the first, kind of coming, the actual age of Aquarius is now here. It's not just coming or dawning. It's now going to be here, starting on December 21st.
I should read up on that.
Yeah. So, in any case, getting back to flower essences and gem elixirs, I was like, oh my gosh, the person the maker of those flower essence gem elixirs, he can make blends. So like, oh wow, I want to make my own blends, or I got that I should make my own blends.
Okay.
And so I sat down and I was like, gosh, what do people really need? And so the first blend that came about was called Soul Balm, right? Because folks who come to me, of course, they come to me, because I do so many different modalities, the folks that come to me are usually complex cases, right? Or people who've tried a lot of different other things and are still seeking, some kind of relief, right? So it's great because a lot of my patients are very sophisticated in terms of their understanding of holistic healing and energy medicine. So it's really gratifying to just come and be all of who I am, and for folks to really get that, right? And more people are getting so sophisticated with the understanding of energy and shifting. So in any case, Soul Balm, has the energies of the tea plant, right? Which in Hawaiian healing, tea is a powerful healing plant. It helps to clear, negative energies and entities. It has sage in it, which is also, again, another we all know we burn sage, right, to help clear. So this is about, Soul Balm is about emotional integration and spiritual clearing, right? So when a lot of people come, they are having a lot of suffering. So this is kind of a little friend that helps to alleviate that suffering, or to be with you as you are working on alleviating and releasing that suffering. There's other flowers in it too to help with that. But later on I realized, a few months later, I realized, oh my gosh, this is actually an essence that's really great for the heart and the root chakras. So now I actually realized I channeled 6 more elixirs And then I realized, oh my gosh, they actually are corresponding to all the different chakras. So now I'm starting to realize they've been in existence now for maybe almost 2 years.
Okay.
And they continue to, my understanding of their, of how they help us is continuing to evolve, right? So now I call them kind of chakra integration or chakra empowering kind of sprays. Yeah, and flower essence elixirs.
What I truly love about experiencing your classes and then experiencing your Reiki and chiropractic journey is that it's a wholesome experience that has a component of nutrition, of additional sound healing, crystals. What do I need to pick up as a vitamin at the store that could potentially help me? What am I lacking in? And so I'm really excited that you have finally had the time to come back and write this book that kind of details, I haven't read it, I'll be honest, but I'm hoping it details a lot of knowing how to use all these instruments and incorporate them into your life to create a wholesome, better you.
Yeah, it's so neat. I am grateful that even though it's been so hard, we were in lockdown back in March of 2020.
Yeah.
And April 2020. And I had been getting, even a few months before that I was supposed to write a book. I was like, okay, I think I'm supposed to write a book. I don't know how or when, but it's supposed to happen. And so actually it did end up happening. A friend of mine introduced me to folks called the Author Incubator. And they help people to write these kind of self-help books in like 3 months or something.
Wow.
So even though it was a good amount of money, using my muscle testing and my intuition, I got that it would be a good investment. Because also sometimes, people need deadlines, right? And people need structure. And they had a proven structure. And my friend ended up writing a book and other people wrote books. So I was like, okay, I guess it's worth the investment. And I took the risk, even though, gosh, I really, it's hard. When you have your own business, you're constantly not knowing when money's going to come in the door. It's so interesting, right? Versus when you're in a salary job, at least you have that kind of sense. So when you are kind of on your own in your own business, you're constantly having to keep your vibration high, manifest. You're constantly having to manifest money.
Yes, you're the creator of your own income.
Exactly. And so, so challenging. So, I didn't know how. I was like, oh my, I only have this much money left in my credit cards. And I'm like, okay, if I'm supposed to do this, then I will be able to cover it. And so actually the amount that the program was the amount that I had left in my credit card. So I literally maxed my credit cards to write this book. So I was really taking a leap of faith. And then it was COVID. So people weren't coming into my office. And so I am grateful to the stimulus. I am grateful to the unemployment that was allowed to gig workers and self-employed. It really was helpful. I'll admit.
Especially in Hawaii.
Yeah.
It's not cheap living here.
Yeah, I know. So I took the leap and I took the risk, but I'm on the other end of that, and I've almost paid back lots of my credit card debt. And who knew that was going to happen within this COVID year? So I just had to trust, because that's how muscle testing works. If you really want to, or even following your intuition. A lot of my students, right, they're still struggling with the self-doubt, like, do I trust the answer? Do I follow it? And I'm like, that's how it works. That's how we practice. We just follow and trust, and so that's what I do. That's how disciplined I am. I'm just like, that's the answer. I'm going to have to follow it. And that's how you get better and better though. Right? So I followed it and I took the risk and I wrote the book, and the book, what's so powerful about writing a book, right, is that you become a person who wrote the book. who wrote a book.
Yeah.
Because a person who has written a book, that's an up-leveled you right there.
Yes.
The fact that you've been able to sit down and take all that you've learned and put it down on paper in a way that makes some kind of sense. So it's almost like a life thesis,
Yes.
right? It's kind of like a life thesis. So I was able to take everything I've learned since 2002 when I first started Reiki, but then of course before, my whole life experience, and I was able to put it into this book, which basically outlines a meta framework for self-healing or transformational healing. So it acknowledges all the different levels of who we are and all the different ways out there that we can help to shift our energy, right? To increase our vibration, but also to be able to hold more, right? So because we, some people we only want to go for high vibration, right? And so then at the expense of low vibration, right? But it's at this point, we're at the point in this world where we need to move beyond that. We need to move beyond this idea of getting things at the expense of other things.
Surviving.
Right? Exactly, right?
Yeah.
But rather that we are becoming high vibration, but that's also because we can hold and cherish the low vibrational things in our life that have allowed us to grow, right? So actually, as you grow, as you move up in your Reiki practice and in your intuition, as you increase that connection to the universe, you're also now increasing your connection to the earth, but also to your lower vibrational energies, and being able to hold both of those as powerfully, right? Yeah. So all the shadow self, right? The more you can embrace that and integrate it and be at peace with it, the more you can access, all those higher vibrations as well. So you want to have both going on, right?
So good. So good. I love what you have to say about trusting and following and casting aside the doubt, because I've had a conversation with myself with regards to, it's not that the universe doesn't want to give you what you've been manifesting. It's that you haven't been willing and trusting enough to let go of what you already have and leap into what might be in the unknown. It's that holding on to those crumbs and the bread, and the universe is like, here's a loaf of bread, and you're like, no, I just want these crumbs here.
Right? Because you don't know any better.
You just don't
or
know.
You do, because of course the quote unquote devil that is like so much easier to hold on to than the one that you don't, right?
That's so true.
So there's this idea, that we're constantly evolving,
We are.
right, and expanding. It's just that we resist and we're scared, and we want to hold on to the known because we're trying to protect ourselves.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And then it's okay, because when you're ready, you will just release it.
You will.
And just trusting. It's all about timing too, right?
Yeah.
And no one else is like you, so there's no rush either. Even though you may, a lot of people who are channeling more and more energy are hearing from their guides to okay, hurry up. There is a little bit of urgency, right? Because if we don't have that, we're not going to change. We're going to be comfortable because it's easy. It's, so there's a little bit of an energetic fire being lit under all of our butts as energy workers and light workers.
Yeah, I can definitely
to
feel
serve more and more people, and we will in our own time, and it's okay, and things will come easily to us. Like when the sound bowl just came to me for free, right? And those things are expensive. I wasn't asking for it specifically. I was just asking, how do I up level? How do I serve more? Right?
Okay. Thank you so very much for spending time with us, sharing your life stories, and so much knowledge. I feel like people who didn't know what Reiki was, they were like, okay, let's go on Google and learn some of the stuff, because we need to up level. I love the word up level now. I think that will be my year word. I'm up leveling. I'm up leveling my life. Not new year, new me, just up leveling. Any final words in your heart, thoughts, things that you wanted to share?
I guess each day, just looking at even the small things that you can do to practice being more compassionate to yourself and to others, because it takes practice, right? We're so used to being hard on ourselves. We're so used to judging ourselves, or sometimes we'll judge other people but don't realize that actually it's because we're judging whatever we see of them in ourselves, right? And so ultimately, what's going to heal the world is love and compassion, ultimately though for ourselves, because we see the world where we are, right? So if we see things that really bug us, that really trigger us, it's because there's something inside of us that we have yet to look at and to understand and to love and be compassionate with. So I recommend learning all the different ways that you can help to shift your energy. And the book that I have, which is called Knowing, The Intuitive's Guide to Transformative Healing, outlines a lot of those different ways that you can shift and heal and learn and love. So it's not about perfection, it's about practicing and allowing ourselves the compassion to make errors and learn.
So Dr. Chris's information will be in the episode notes. On the website, you can schedule Reiki classes, acupuncture appointments, purchase elixirs. All of it is on the website. This is it from us. So I would like to say, as I usually say, until next time, maholo kwe, kiotaba, rebuile, aloha.